snow blows cold outside. Friendly faces, warm embraces surround us all tonight. So we make this one simple wish, meant for every girl and boy. May the holiday bring you peace and joy. From those who you love to the stars above, may the holiday bring you peace and joy.
A lot more pages in it, but I'm not going to go through the whole entire book because the rest of it is just a commentary, information about why he created him, and so forth and so forth. But still, let's get into the Grinch. And by the way, this is the perfect story to do with the preschoolers. Alright. Here we go. Every Who down in Whoville liked Christmas a lot. But the Grinch did not. But the Grinch who lived just north of Whoville really did not like Christmas. The Grinch hated Christmas, the whole Christmas season. Now, please do not ask why. No one quite knows the reason. It could be his head wasn't screwed on just right. It could be perhaps that his shoes were too tight. But I think that the most likely reason of all may have been that his heart was 2 sizes too small. Sorry, page problem again. I always have problems with that all the time. Right. But whatever the reason, his heart or his shoes, he stood there on Christmas Eve, hating the Who's, staring down from his cave, with a sour, grinchy frown at the warm, lighted window below in their town, for knew every Who down in Whoville beneath was busy now, hanging a mistletoe wreath. And they're hanging their stockings. He saw with a sneer, "Tomorrow is Christmas. It's practically here." Then he growled with his grinchy fingers, nervously drumming, "I must find some way to stop Christmas from coming. For tomorrow," he knew. He knew. All the Who girls and boys would wake bright and early. They rushed for their toys, and then, oh, the noise, noise. That's one thing he hated, the noise. Then the Who's young and old would sit down to a feast, and they'd feast, and they'd feast, and they'd feast. They wouldn't feast on their Who pudding and the rare roast beef, which was something the Grinch couldn't stand in the least. And then they do something he liked least of all. Every Who down in Whoville, the tall and the small, would stand close together with Christmas bells ringing. They stand hand in hand, and the Who's would start singing. They sing and they sing, and they sing. And the more the Grinch thought this Who Christmas sing, the more the Grinch thought, "I must stop this whole thing. Why, for the 53 years I put up with it now, I must stop this Christmas from coming. But how?" And I think we all know what comes next. Yep. Then he got an idea. An awful idea. The Grinch had a wonderful, awful idea. I know just what to do." The Grinch laughed in his throat, and he made a quick Santa Claus hat and coat, and he chuckled and clucked. "What a great Grinchy trick! With this coat and this hat, I look just like Saint Nick. All I need is a reindeer." The Grinch looked around, but since reindeer are scarce, there was none to be found. Did that stop the old Grinch? No. The Grinch simply said, "If I can't find a reindeer, I'll make one instead." So he called his dog Max. Then he took some red thread, and he tied a big horn on the top of his head. Then he loaded some bags and some old empty sacks on a ramshackle sleigh, and he hitched up the old Max. Then the Grinch giddy up, and the sleigh started down toward the home where the Who's lay a snooze in their town. All the windows were dark. Quiet snow filled the air. All the Who's were dreaming of sweet dreams without care. When he came to the first little house on the square, "This is stop number 1, the old Grinchy Claus hissed, and he climbed to the roof, empty bags in his fist. Then he slid down the chimney, a rather tight pinch. But if Santa could do it, then he could. So could the Grinch. He got stuck only once for a moment or two. Then he stuck his head out of the fireplace. Where the little Who's stockings all hung in a row, "These stockings," he grinned, "are the first things to go." Then he slithered and slunk with a smile most unpleasant around the whole room, and he took every present: pop guns and bicycles, roller skates, drums, checkerboards, tricycles, popcorn, and plums, and he stuffed them in bags. Then the Grinch, very nimble, stuffed all the bags, one by one, up the chimney. Then he slunk to the icebox. He took the Who's feast. He took the Who pudding. He took the roast beast. Cleaned out that icebox as quick as a flash. Why, that Grinch even took the last can of Who hash. Then he stuffed all the food up the chimney with glee. "And now," grinned the Grinch, "I will stuff up the tree." And the Grinch grabbed the tree, and he started to shove when he heard a small sound like a coo of a dove. He turned around fast, and he saw a small Who, little Cindy Lou Who was not more than 2. The Grinch had been caught by this tiny Who daughter, who'd got out of bed for a cup of cold water. He stared at the Grinch and said, "Santa Claus, why? Why are you taking our Christmas tree? Why?" But you know, that old Grinch was so clever, so smart, so slick. He thought of a lie, and he thought it up quick. "Why, my sweet little tot, a fake Santa Claus lied. There's a light on this tree that won't light on one side, so I'm taking it home to my workshop, my dear. I'll fix it up there, and I'll bring it back here." And his fib fooled the child. Then he patted her head and he got her a drink and sent her to bed. And when Cindy Lou Who went to bed with a cup, he went to the chimney and stuffed up the tree. Then the last thing he took was a log for the fireplace. Then he went up the chimney himself. The old liar, on the walls he left nothing but hooks and some wire, and the one speck of food that he left in the house was a crumb that was even too small for a mouse. Then he did the same thing to the other Who's houses. leaving them crumbs much too small for other who mouses. It was 1/4 dawn, all the Who's still abed, all the Who's still a snooze, when he packed up his sled, packed it up with their presents, the ribbons, the wrappings, the tags, and the tinsel, the trimming and trapping. There, thousands of feet up the side on Mount Crumpet, he rode with his load to the tippy top to dump it. Pooh-pooh to the Who's. He was Grinch-ishly humming. They're finding out now that no Christmas is coming. They're just waking up. I know just what they'll do. Their mouths will hang open a minute or two. Then the Who's down in Whoville will all cry boo-hoo. That's a noise, grinned the Grinch, that I simply must hear. So he paused, and the Grinch put his hand to his ear. And he did hear a sound rising over the snow. It started in low, then it started to grow. But the sound didn't sound sad. Why, the sound sounded merry. It couldn't be so. But it was merry, very. He stared down at the Whoville, and the Grinch popped his eyes and shook. What he saw was a shocking surprise. Every Who down in Whoville, the tall and the small, was singing without any presents at all. He hadn't stopped Christmas from coming. It came. Somehow or other, it came just the same. And the Grinch, with his Grinch feet ice cold in the snow, stood puzzling and puzzling. How could it be so? It came without ribbons. It came without tags. It came without packages, boxes of bags. And he puzzled 3 hours, till his puzzler was sore. Then the Grinch thought of something he hadn't before. Maybe Christmas, he thought, doesn't come from a store. Maybe Christmas, perhaps, means a little bit more. Well, what happened then? Well, in Whoville they say that the Grinch's small heart grew 3 sizes that day, and the minute his heart didn't feel quite so tight, he whizzed with his load through the bright morning light, and he brought back the toys and the food for the feast, and he himself, the Grinch, carved the roast beef. Alright, so that was the Grinch Who Stole Christmas. I hope you enjoyed. I know I did. So, I cannot wait to get into another story and post another video sometime tonight or tomorrow. Happy holidays, everyone. Bye.
Peace on earth is all around. Everything is calm on Christmas Eve. There's goodwill